ISO FileMaker Magazine, the professional's resource for FileMaker know-how. Alright, well hello there my fellow FileMaker friends, fans, and developers. This is Matt Petrowski bringing you these FileMaker tutorials over at the website FileMakerMagazine.com. In this video tutorial, we're taking a look at the topic of creating a color palette. We're going to be using some convenient tools to establish our solution colors. Now, if you haven't worked with FileMaker themes and you haven't established your own solutions color palette, or if you're starting a new solution, this video is going to be a great eye-opener in terms of how you can so easily manage and set up colors within a FileMaker file. Let's take a look at it. Alright, so first things, let's cover what I have on screen here. What I have over on the left side here is my FileMaker file. It is aptly named Color Palettes. And then over here I have a web browser. Now in this web browser I have two different color tools loaded. My most favorite is this one called Paletton, which was a rename from one that was originally called Color Scheme Designer. In fact, you'll see that down at the bottom here of the web browser. But I also have another popular one loaded, and there's a lot of them that are out there. Now, in this video, I'm going to do a little bit of explaining how you use these color tools, but most of what we're looking at is how we got this into our FileMaker solution, as if we were starting a new solution, or if we were working on our current solution and we're migrating it up from an older version of FileMaker to a newer version, because more recent versions of FileMaker, in particular 14, which I'm working in today, has added a new color palette that makes it very easy for us to select and use colors, especially when designing both on Mac and Windows, because it shares that same color palette. So what I'm going to be doing is, you can see here with Adobe, you can drag. They have these color wheels where you can move them. This currently is what's known as a monochromatic theme. You can see that everything stays within the same color range. It's specified right here as monochromatic. They have analogous, triadic, complementary, compound, all of the theory that goes behind colors you get within art classes. I won't go into great depth. One of the easiest to select for a lot of solutions, especially when you're dealing with a solution that tends to be monochromatic originally, but then you want accent colors. In fact, FileMaker's default theme uses a somewhat of a complementary. When you create a new FileMaker solution and it starts with the enlightened theme, in fact, let's go ahead and do that. We're going to go up to the new solution because I'm going to be needing a new solution anyway. And I'll just call this my solution. That's going to open up. Now the theme by default created on this new FileMaker file is enlightened. I can always find that by simply looking here in layout mode that yes, indeed, it is enlightened theme. I can of course see that on this layout. I can also click this button, which will bring it up and you can see that it is selected as the enlightened theme. Now, since I don't have to change anything, what we're taking a look at in this video is we're taking a look at the colors. Let me hide the field picker there. Now, the color picker in FileMaker 14 is available anytime that you select any object and a color. Now, I don't have to have an object on my layout. I can, of course, select the header part, but as soon as I click right here over on the actual fill color, what we're taking a look at is these are the colors that FileMaker has within this particular theme. These are the accent colors. The blue, the red, the green, and so forth. But otherwise, it's pretty much a monochromatic within the grayscale color range. I don't know what I was trying to say there, but basically it is a grayscale theme with accent colors. It is not a theme that relies on colors. The colors are themselves accents. And that's always a good way to go when you're designing a FileMaker solution. But sometimes you want to use colors themselves as your primary base color for a solution. Now, when we're looking at the FileMaker color picker here, which had changed in FileMaker 14, what we need to recognize is that FileMaker only stores or will allow us to occupy this middle range. When we drag a color into this little color palette, FileMaker automatically creates a darker version, a subtle darker version, and then a lighter version. And we cannot control those. When we drag them in, for some reason, FileMaker made the decision that the color that we drag in can only occupy this middle range, and then they will make a lighter and darker version for us. I believe the attempt for that, or the attempt in this, is to give you the variations without having to choose. Now they chose for you what the percentage of difference is. And I actually haven't taken the time to recognize, is this a 10% darker in terms of saturation or in saturation and hue, or is it, I don't know exactly what it is. They are making the selection for you. Sometimes we don't want that. So we're going to take a little bit of control. We know that we can't control these, and it is very helpful, I must say. I'm not complaining that I can't change these to what I want. Well, actually, I am complaining. I wish I could set these to whatever I want, but it's nice that FileMaker does it for you. Now, in order to work with this color palette, what you're going to find is that you can make a selection here, and that will actually choose my color. I, of course, could choose my darker color and then choose the lighter color that FileMaker makes, but I can't really right-click on this. I can't select it, and with it selected, I can't hit the delete key. I can't get rid of it. So the way that you deal with this palette up here, where you have the solution-specific colors, you can drag colors from down in here or from here into this area, just like that. You can see that I drag this color, my specified color, into here. It saves it into the middle slot, and then I have the top and the bottom, which FileMaker calculates for me. I can also drag from here, and this is one of the ways that I can wipe things out. But you can see that I'm not actually wiping things out here in this solution. I'm not truly getting rid of these because FileMaker, every time that you drag into this color palette, is doing the calculations for me. So you can see that it's from the transparent color, or let's say even from white. When I drag white in, a lighter shade of white is going to be white, but a darker shade of white is going to be this subtle gray. So you can't really clear things out. So what you want to do is you want to take advantage of the fact that you have all of these slots. You have your color, your standard FileMaker, I believe it's the 256 down here, plus transparent, but you can always go to your other color. You already know that. But we want to get this full with the colors that we want for our solution. So moving on, the best way if you're starting a new FileMaker solution, or if you're migrating a previous FileMaker solution and you're wanting to create a new theme to take advantage of FileMaker's theming capabilities, you can change that theme obviously by clicking right here, or you can go up to the Manage, and well, actually not on themes, it's a layout specific setting. So you would go to Change Theme here under the Layouts menu. But my most favorite is to simply right-click outside of the theme itself and just choose Change Theme. Now, once we change theme, in older versions of FileMaker, the default theme coming from FileMaker 11 before FileMaker 12 got our new theming engine was called Classic. Now, Classic does not exist in this particular file, but if you have an older file, pre-FileMaker 11 or 11 and under, it will say quite possibly Classic. Now, Minimalist, this one right here, is what replaced the Classic theme. And this is the one that if you're going to create your own FileMaker theme, you want to start from this one because it doesn't include a whole lot of CSS and a whole lot of the attributes that you find in any of the other themes. So if I start with Minimalist, and the difference here between Minimalist Touch and Minimalist is this is simply going to use larger fonts because of the higher pixel density over on Retina resolution devices. But if I choose Minimalist here, you can see everything is going to go to whites, grays, blacks, very subtle. I'm going to say, yes, I want this to be discarded. What we're going to notice now is when we select on an object and we go over to this color picker, our color palette has been reset. It is now a blank slate ready for us to actually implement our color theme. So that's the next part of this video. It's going to be choosing and creating a color theme and then getting that into FileMaker and doing it in a very efficient fashion. All right, so now that we've discussed going to the minimalist theme as our starting point, we can take a look at creating our color theme. Now, again, I stated that there are many different color tools online, but this is my favorite just because I like how I can work with it and the fact that it will output text or content in the format that makes it very easy for me to import. In fact, that's what makes it so cool to learn from this particular tool. So first, let's go over the tool itself. So Paletton, you're typically going to choose a primary color. Once you've chosen your primary color, you can then choose all of your supporting or accent colors based on what you're going to design. Now, currently I have a monochromatic setting right here, theme. And what I like about this Paletton tool is the way that it allows you to choose colors. You can see over here we've got this display where my primary color is here in all of the different views, but I have all of my different shades and variations, very much what FileMaker does when it attempts to make that darker and that lighter version. The problem is FileMaker doesn't create one that is so dark from your primary color that you have a really strong accent or something that you can create a lot of contrast with. Now down here at the bottom, when you take a look at this preview, the default that may come up when you're using the Paletton tool is this one right here, where they have squares embedded within squares with no text. What I like is I like to change the preview to the alternative and the alternative with text, because that's what allows me to see what is it going to look like when my text, or a white text, a dark text, and then a 50% gray text is on top of the colors that I'm picking. Now, when it comes to creating the shade variations, what I like about this is as you hover over, you can see the tip that comes up that says hold shift to move shades individually. Now, I can drag this middle one around, and what it does is you see that those little round circles attempt to follow the primary one as I drag to the edges and drag all the way around. And looking at the colors, you can see we've got no saturation here. We're in the grays. But as we go to the opposite side, we've got a very heavy or deep level of saturation. But holding down that shift key means that I can choose my primary color if it's this somewhat muted blue, but I can hold down the shift and now make the darker version very dark. I can now independently control these and span them out to the different tonal ranges that I want. So if I want a really light blue, that I know many times I do, and then something that is a little bit light, I'm able to control the range. And what's cool is now when I move this, it keeps that distance. It keeps my darks that far away from my primary color. That's what makes this one tool pretty cool. But on top of that, because this tool has already done all the work for me, or allowed me to do a lot of the work, I want to transfer this into FileMaker. Now here, we need to go over what would be the standard method. Okay, somebody may go and they may select a rectangle, and then say, I want to add that color. Go over to the Appearance tab up here in the inspector, and then choose the color. Now the cool thing is we do have this tool of the magnifying glass, which we can select and then choose the color. And we now have the color in our FileMaker solution. And we can very easily select on this and now drag my color into the box. FileMaker is going to make a darker version and a lighter version. They may not reflect the versions that I have in here that I've selected, but I of course can do the same thing over and over and over again. I don't want to do that. That's where my tool comes in real handy, because we want to simply kit and pull all of these colors out. Now it's really impressive when we actually select on something like a triadic and get some somewhat complementary colors here supporting. Let's get a nice golden orange right there, and we'll add one complementary. I want to get my orange, and then we'll pull these off. We'll use that right there. So now that I have all of these colors, this tool in particular allows all kinds of different forms of output. So down here at the bottom, we have this tables and export. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on that, and you can see I've got all the colors here. Now, many times you can try to select and highlight all these colors. You can copy it and try to take them to the clipboard. But if you notice over on the side here, this color list allows us to export as HTML, CSS, less Sass. You don't need to know what those are. Those are simply CSS formatters. But XML and text provide me with clues that, oh, I could get this into FileMaker really easily. Now, from an importing standpoint, when we look at these, the text format is not an import-ready format. So the only one that really is import-ready for me is XML. Now, using XML to import into FileMaker requires that you know XSL. And if you don't want to learn or take the time, no problem. I've already done that for you in this particular file, because this is how easy it's going to be for me to get all of those colors like this into my solution. I'll show this to you really quickly. I'm going to select on the XML format. I'm going to view the source of that because I don't really want to save it. I could, from this page, very easily go up to the Save option of Save As, choose this option of Page Source, which is also available on Windows browsers as well, and simply save this as colors.xml. In fact, you can see right here that I have a version colors.xml, where I've actually output that. Now, if I was to save that, I could now import that. But if I'm going to do anything within FileMaker where the user could easily copy something, say for example, from a web browser. Now, I can't copy this because in the world of XML, if I'm going to import that XML, I do need the XML declaration. Over here, by looking at the source of the page, in fact, every web page, no matter what it's actually displaying, it has the ability to view source. Now, in Safari, if you don't already have it turned on, there is this Develop menu. But the Develop menu is only accessible by going to the Preferences and going to Advanced, and then down at the very bottom, you have this little option of Show Develop Menu in Menu Bar. Now, by default, all of the browsers allow you to view all of the source of any web page. You simply need to know either what the key is to invoke it or find it on the menu. That's what I've done over here. I've simply viewed the source of this page because that's what has the XML tag that I need right there. So, in other words, all we're doing is I'm simply needing to access something that has all of the XML, not this view right here where it doesn't have the original or the top line, the declaration that this is XML. Hopefully that makes sense. But you can see that I'll go over here and I'll paste this and I'll click import. It's going to ask me what is the set or what do I want to name this. So I'll just call it My Solution Colors. Say OK. It tells me 20 were imported and I'm going to set the clipboard right now. That ran a script. I'm going to go into browse mode. I'm going to get rid of that, paste that right there. And I'll actually copy that now, and I'll tell you why I needed to do that. But I'll go over here and I will paste, and what you're going to see is that I really didn't have to do a whole lot of work in order to get all of these colors into my FileMaker solution. As I expand these out, you're going to see all of my colors came in. In fact, I can move all of this, do that. Let's move it so that it's easier to see all of these. And grab that one right there. That needs to be grabbed. You can see how quick it is for me to get colors into my FileMaker solution. And we'll just size this one out right here. And you can see that I'm using the Arrange and Align tools in order to simply drag those objects out, and then using the Space tool over here in order to space them out. And once I've got that, I could do that for all of these other ones too. I could select these two, and I could align them, select these two, align them, and then just space everything out. So that I basically have this color palette within my FileMaker solution really quick and easy. The cool thing being that I can go over to the Appearance tab now, simply select any one of these, and I can now just drag these colors in. And all I have to do is move from one object to the next and drag in my colors to get all of these colors into my solution so that they identify the color palette that I'm going to be using. And this color palette stays with this actual file. So you can see that getting these colors in, and I accidentally did the same one right there. That needed to go right there. You can always replace these color palettes. This just instantly made it so that I could put my color palettes into this FileMaker solution so that now any of my selections I can know that I can select from this middle row. And I also have FileMaker's created darker versions. It basically just gives me my palette, inclusive of all of my complementary and access colors as well. So for the rest of this video, now that I've shown you what the tool does, I'm going to go into a little bit of depth as to how I actually accomplish this. I also need to explain why, as I select that particular box, why I need to paste it within this particular file. Because you'll notice that if I do the same thing over here, let's get rid of everything. Let's go over and do it again really quickly just because it's so fun. So I've selected it. I'm going to go for complementary now. I've selected that. I'm going to move this and go for muted colors. Okay, great. These are my colors. Tables, export, XML. Great, I've got that. View my source, select all, copy, go over here, paste, import my XML, call it new colors, renamed, great, set all to clipboard, and then just paste those in. What you're going to see is in this particular case, it is not working. None of my colors are actually coming as the proper colors. This has to do with the fact that the theme on this particular file is not the same theme as when I originally copied one particular object and then built it within this tool. So this is a little bit of a technicality with regards to themes, but if I set all to clipboard here, go into layout mode, paste here, because I'm now pasting these objects into a layout that has the same theme from which the objects that are being used, or the XML, which is right here, being used to create these objects, actually belong. So now when I copy this and go over to another FileMaker file, which has a different theme, when I paste it, I will get all of my colors as expected. So now when I expand everything out here, I get all of the colors and I'm ready to import that. But I could not paste that directly into this FileMaker solution because of the very fact that this FileMaker solution has the theme of minimalist, or a modified version of minimalist. This FileMaker file has the theme of enlightened, because what I'm doing is I am automatically creating these objects using a FileMaker database. That's what the rest of this video is going to be about. How did I actually create this tool and do it within about an hour? That saves me now a lot of time that I can use in all of my other solutions. If I want to get colors from Paletton for any new solution that I'm going to do, I can pick this color scheme that I want, import it in the FileMaker database. The FileMaker database will store the colors for me, and I can generate those colors in order to put into any solution anytime that I want by setting the clipboard. So the rest of this video is now about the technical details of this file, how I accomplished and created this file in order to make it so that I can put these colors into a FileMaker database so quickly. So let's take a look at that and break down this file so that you get a little bit more learning and understanding about using FileMaker. All right, so now let's get into the goodies and the details of how this file was created, because there's a lot of little gems built into this file that will make you an even better FileMaker developer. Now, this file was simply just a standard FileMaker file. I created it. I was just like any other file, went up to new solution, enlightened theme, just basic FileMaker file. The first thing that I knew that I needed was over here in my little tool. When I go to the tables and export, originally I looked at this save as text. Now, the save as text, like all output from most things that developers create, there is a pattern. In this text, the pattern is simply space equals space. If I was to replace space equals space, every one of these with a tab character and get rid of all of the rest of this stuff, I have a file that I could easily import into FileMaker. But that would require me to manually do that each and every time that I wanted a palette. So as we recognize over here, when we looked at all these different these formats, HTML, CSS, less, none of these are formats that FileMaker could natively import. XML, however, is one of the formats that FileMaker could import. Going over and looking at the file, if you go to the Import Records option, you can see very clearly that XML data source is one of the options. The problem with importing XML is that FileMaker only supports importing XML the way that FileMaker understands XML. And when we take a look at the XML over here, this XML is not in a format that FileMaker understands. It is in a format that Paletton, this particular application, understands. So what we have to do is we have to convert this XML into FileMaker XML using an XSL style sheet. Now, if you don't want to take the time to learn XSL, you don't want to take the time to learn about nodes and referencing objects using XPath, you don't have to. I have embedded the style sheet that is used for this XML into the layout on this particular file. In fact, on this file, what I've done is I've embedded the standard object. It is that object that if I set the clipboard right here, what has been set onto the clipboard is a series of objects, which are those text objects that when I paste them here, they simply are these objects. Now, in this case, when I paste here, the problem that the colors don't come through on this particular theme is, as I stated before, this theme is different than the theme from where this box was originally created. Now don't worry, this will make sense. If you have not looked at FileMaker's Clipboard with a Clipboard plugin, then I'm going to show you where all of the details are. This is nitty-gritty, under the hood, FileMaker behind the scenes stuff of what actually makes this box have the color that I want. So what I had done, and this does require the use of the Base Elements plugin. You will see that when you actually open up this file, that the Base Elements plugin is required in order to work with the clipboard. Unfortunately, it is a freely available plugin. So over here in this file, what I did is I created a text object like this, and I put in the word value. And we'll go over to the Appearance tab and make sure that my text is black so that we can see it. And I'll just center it right here and take it off from being bold. So I did something like this. So when I created this particular text block, I copied this after going over to the fill right here and setting the fill to be a solid color. And I set it to, doesn't matter what I use right now, a color. The whole premise here is that because this object exists and was created within this particular theme, which this particular theme happens to be the Enlightened theme or a modified version of it, I can see that because I've changed the actual splash screen. So I've saved this theme with modified objects. When I copy this and look at this object with regards to how it's stored on the clipboard, I'm going to see that there is an identifier that identifies this particular object in association to this particular theme. So I'm going to copy this. Now again, you will need the Base Elements plugin. I'm going to create a watch variable here within the data viewer. And I'm going to type in, I have a shortcut called FM clip. Now what this is going to do is going to use these functions right here from the Base Elements plugin. BE Clipboard Formats. Now the BE Clipboard Formats is simply going to list what are all of the objects that are on the clipboard. And this is the clipboard that both the operating system and FileMaker can see. And FileMaker identifies all of the different types of data that it can see. When you copy something to the clipboard, it's not just what you think. It's not just one singular object. It's actually multiple different variations or different formats of that same object. Because if you were to paste this into an application that wanted a graphic object, then that should be on the clipboard to paste it. If you paste it into an application that wants text, then maybe you should be able to paste it as text. So depending on the application, multiple formats are taken to the clipboard. So in the case of the Base Elements plugin, the very first item of the clipboard formats is the FileMaker native format. So you can see that I'm using the get value to grab the first value of all of the different possible formats that have been put onto the clipboard. Next, what I'm doing is I'm then using the actual BE clipboard text function, and that needs a specification of what format do I actually need to get. And we're going to see that the format is actually over here. It's this weird looking DYN dot some other format. Fortunately, on the Mac, it's always the same. On Windows, it is going to be different. This particular function would work on Windows. It would not work on Mac, or excuse me, it will work on Windows and it will work on Mac. But I'm substituting here because also within the content, we get all of these different encoded characters, which represent simply the return character and the tab character as well. So when I evaluate this, what we're going to see is we're going to see actual XML text that is on the actual clipboard. Now I'm going to go to the Services menu and open a new Text Wrangler document so we can actually look at what's going on. So before I scroll up, here is what I am talking about. This line right here. In fact, we'll zoom in so that we can see everything on screen. So this particular theme, if this was a FileMaker theme, when I copied this object on the clipboard, it would say com.filemaker.theme.enlightened. If it was the Enlightened theme. I can see right here that it is a custom theme that I have changed. It just still happens to be named the same name as Enlightened, but it is no longer the Enlightened theme because I have saved and changed objects and saved and changed the theme. This unique ID internal to the clipboard, to the theme itself, is what identifies this particular theme. It's why copying objects and putting them on the clipboard in this file, but then pasting them into a file with a different theme won't actually work. Because when I originally copied the object, I created and copied the object in this particular theme. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to take and dissect all of this content that is on the clipboard, but simply modify it in a way that I can simply create multiples of these singular objects. So what I did is I copied this one object, this text box with a color. I went over to the clipboard that I had gotten using the Base Elements plugin. I scrolled down to the bottom and I took everything that identifies this one object, which is all of this text in between here, from the opening object tag right here to the closing object tag down at the bottom. Now, once I copied this text, and this again is a format that I love using over and over again. I love simply just the ability to put this type of text straight within a FileMaker layout, because FileMaker text allows you to support merge fields or merge variables. So this is what's beautiful about this particular file. When I double click on this particular text block and I scroll down, what you're going to see is something such as this right here. And I've shown this in many of my other videos. Local CSS, which is what defines the particular color of this particular object. Well, the background color is going to be a particular value. Where is that value going to come from? Well, let's go ahead and grab it from a merge field of the merge value RGBA. RGBA is quite clearly a FileMaker value that is coming from my particular field right here, RGBA, as I turn off the display. So there's the RGBA field. Now this happens to be an auto-enter calculated field, which is pulling from all of the different fields that are in this file. When we look at the fields that are in, you can see that I have RGBA, hex, I have the name, I have RG and B, and then I have a couple other supporting fields. Now this R, G, and B are what came from the XML over in the web browser. So here in the web browser, we can see that what's supplied as part of the XML is an ID with the name right here. There's also RGB right here, which is actually not RGB. It's the hexadecimal value right here. But then we also have R, G, and then further on down, B. So the trick here was I simply need to import all of this content as XML using an XSL style sheet to convert it to get it into FileMaker. So because I know how to do XSL style sheets, I was able to do that pretty quickly. So when we look at these objects here in the layout of this particular file, you're going to see that there is an XSL style sheet right here. And all of these are going to be named objects. Looking over here at the position tab, you can see, sorry, that's my error that's making a sound when I'm hitting the wrong key. The XSL object is simply named XSL. When I select on this one right here, I've got an object named snippet. And then likewise over here, I have an object simply named object. Now as I size this down to 50, you're going to get the sense of what I'm actually doing when I explain this in terms of how the script is working. And here's how the script works. I took that object that I created in here, copied it, went over to the watch viewer, looked at the data using the Base Elements clipboard, copied the clipboard, went over to a document, copied only the internal portion that represented the one object, the one text object that has the color that I want to set. Everything else outside of that, I took that and put it in another layout object that can be seen right here, where when we look at this, you can see that I've got the XML declaration, fmxml snippet, layout as an object, layout closing tag, and fmxml snippet as closing tag. So here's opening, here's closing, here's opening, here's closing. What goes in between that? Everything that is within the global variable of objects. Where are objects coming from? Well, that's simply a FileMaker loop that is looping through each record in the current found set and simply grabbing the content of this text. The content of this text is in turn merging the values from the fields within the database. That automates the whole process of creating native FileMaker objects using data from a FileMaker database. That's what makes this particular process, not just this tool, so invaluable, because you can automate so many things that you're going to do in your layouts if you have standardized objects that you want to use, because you can, of course, copy anything to your clipboard. So when we go into browse mode, you can see that we now have a system that allows us to export all of this data out, get it into FileMaker database as data, and then use text objects in order to cycle through a found set of records, create those objects within a global variable, and then simply use the same process that we did to copy the clipboard out to set the clipboard to our FileMaker objects. The next step being, all we have to know is that when we paste these objects, we will paste them into the theme first, because FileMaker does some internal conversions on them, saying, okay, I see that this was the same object, but it has these different values. I need to rename each of these objects. It now has renamed all of the individual blocks. So now when I cut this from this particular layout and go over to my other FileMaker file, now when I paste this, I've done a select all, and now when I paste, I'm going to have all of the colors that I actually want to have when I size these out. In fact, we'll go all the way over here and then select these and space them out, and I get all of my objects, making it very easy for me to simply select these, go over to my appearance, and put my colors in and drag them by simply selecting each of the objects. That is the time savings that we are looking for when we're going to do things within FileMaker. We want to automate as much as we can the process in order to get things done the way that we want them done. So that's how I actually deal with color palettes. You've got the tool if you are a subscriber. If you're not a subscriber, you can of course take the information that you have here in this free video and replace it. If you are interested in more learning about FileMaker, how to do these types of tasks and really make your development time in FileMaker very efficient in terms of developing things, then please head over to FileMakerMagazine.com and subscribe. I promise you will not be disappointed with the other tutorial videos where you learn more and more on a regular basis about FileMaker Pro. We hope you've enjoyed this video tutorial, and we'd like to say thank you for your subscription and your support. If you're not already a subscriber, head on over to www.filemakermagazine.com/subscribe for more information about the benefits of joining.